What's up, guys? This is Draco. It's coming up on 12 years since I started playing World of Warcraft, so I figured I'd make this video about my top 10 favorite historical moments throughout World of Warcraft. See, I tried really hard to make this video about WoW collectively, and not just about vanilla WoW, and for me that was kind of difficult because most of my favorite World of Warcraft moments took place in vanilla, but I did add some non-vanilla events in this list. So let's get started. Number 10. Did somebody say Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker? See, Molten Core was vanilla's first raid, and the one-handed sword Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker was the first insanely coveted piece of gear. It was also the first legendary, so it was like extremely difficult to get. It was a very long process, very long quest line. To get it, you had to obtain 2 different low percentage drops off of 2 different Molten Core bosses, which was hard in its own right. And you would really think that you'd be almost done by the time you did all that, but really that was just the beginning. It ends with you getting 10 enchanted elementium bars, which in vanilla was insanely expensive to get. You got them from smelting an elementium ingot with 10 arcanite bars and a fiery core. And basically this weapon started a meme where people would say, and WoW trade chat usually, did someone say Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, and they would link the sword. And then everyone would start flooding the chat and linking the item, making it nearly impossible to find a group or create a group or like that, because all the chat channels would just be flooded from that point on. Blizzard even eventually added an achievement referencing that later on in the game for an anniversary. Number 9. The South Park WoW episode. There was an episode of South Park back in 2006 that had all of the South Park kids adventuring through Azeroth, and there was a guy who was depicted to be an insanely high level, and he kept ganking all the low level players. Then the kids from South Park had to save Azeroth using the Sword of 1,000 Truths to kill that player, and the episode was called Make Love, Not Warcraft, and that's another moment in WoW history that Blizzard referenced by later making an achievement for. And that's the achievement that you get by using the /hug emote on a dead player of the opposing faction before they release their spirit. Number 8, achievements. Okay, so I know this might be an unpopular opinion with some of you, but I put in-game achievements on this list, and they were added during the pre-patch for Wrath of the Lich King. See, it was kind of cool having these vanity points and being able to earn achievements for just stupid random things, and it's all some players spend their time doing. It gives you hours upon hours of stuff to do if you get bored with the regular gameplay like raiding and arenas and stuff like that. The only thing I didn't like when achievements came into play is like all throughout Wrath of the Lich King, whenever you were trying to find a raid, they would always say things like link gear score and highest achievement, which just made it hard to gear your alts or your main if you just started to progress late. And I've just always felt that just because you have an achievement for a boss fight doesn't necessarily mean you're any good, and people get carried through that kind of stuff like all the time. But you know, I digress. Number 7. Alltrack Valley lasting all day. So when Battlegrounds were first added, there was only Warsong Gulch, which was a 10 versus 10 map, and Arathi Basin, which was a 15 versus 15 map. But Alltrack Valley was the first 40 versus 40 map, and remained the only one until Isle of Conquest was added in Wrath of the Lich King. And one of the things that made Alltrack Valley different was that there were also PvE objectives that you needed to complete to win the battle, like killing the mini-boss and then the main boss and burning the towers that had guards on all of them. And this made Alltrack Valley like a really popular battleground amongst the player base. The thing that really made it epic though was during its first few renditions, one match could go on forever, it seemed like. I remember logging off one night in the middle of a match, then logging in the next morning, and then I queued, and I joined the same Alltrack Valley match, and they almost always at least lasted a few hours. Blizzard eventually added a system that gave Battlegrounds a certain amount of time before auto-completed, but I will always remember those epic vanilla Alltrack Valley fights. Number 6. South Shore versus Terran Mill fights. See, at the initial launch of WoW, PvP was broken to say the least, but that's what we all loved about it, you know? There were no battlegrounds or arenas at all, so if you wanted to PvP, you actually had to go out into the world and hunt them down. One of the most popular world PvP spots was Hillsbrad Foothills, because there was an alliance town called South Shore and a horde town called Terran Mill, and they were extremely close to each other, so players of each faction would fight trying to push the other side back and take over the other town. Some of these fights got really annoying though, because hundreds and hundreds of players would come, and it would cause these insane lag spikes and DCs. But the cool part about it is that there really wasn't any rewards for being a part of it. People just did it for the fun instead of loot, and tons of players on every server really took place in it. The world PvP is something that I personally miss most about old World of Warcraft. Blizzard tried to turn it into an instance 40 versus 40 battleground for the 10th anniversary event, but it really wasn't the same, with there being less players, and you didn't have to walk back to your bodies and wait 2 minutes for the respawn, and players didn't really charge in all at once like they did back in vanilla. So I'm pretty grateful that I was actually able to experience those battles. Number 5, the AQ event. Encourage was Vanilla WoW's third tier of in-game content, and Blizzard had a huge event for its release. When AQ was first patched into the game, the gates to its 40 and 20 man raids were closed, and to open the gates, the entire server had to help collect items for the quote-unquote AQ war effort. And once players collected enough of the items, there was a one-time event that took place in the desert near the raid entrance. They literally released raid bosses into the open world. They haven't done anything like that since, because having all those players fighting raid bosses in one spot caused really severe server lag and a lot of DCs. Number 4, Naxxramas. The last vanilla raid was called Naxxramas, and it was the most difficult content in the game, easily. It was commonly referred to as Naxx the Guild Breaker because it was known for being so difficult that it caused many guilds to die or disband after attempting to clear it. You needed gear from Blackwing Lair and Encourage to even have a chance of surviving Naxx. And because of this raid, Blizzard never really made another one that difficult again, because the developers didn't see a point in spending all these hours creating a raid that the vast majority of players would never get to see. And this was when they started making raid content more accessible to larger groups of players. Number 3, the Blood Plague. This is one of the first World of Warcraft moments that got the game mentioned in mainstream media. The plague started on September 13th, 2005, and it lasted for about a week. Players found an exploit where they could take a debuff that was cast by Hekar, the Soul Player, who is the end boss for Zul'Gurub, and they could use it to infect random players in major cities. The disease rapidly jumped from player to player, so it one-shotted any low-level players that came into contact with it. Blizzard had to go to quarantine, and the player base started staying out of major cities so they wouldn't get hit from the debuff. This event literally caught the attention of scientists that used this as a case study on how humans might react in the case of a deadly virus outbreak. Number 2, raid attunements. One of the best things about World of Warcraft was the raid attunements and taking the time to progress your guild into the raids. I will never forget getting attuned to Karazhan with my guild in Burning Crusade. You had to run through multiple dungeons in a specific order to get quest items, and dungeons weren't as easy then as they are now. You actually had to use crowd control techniques, and it required a lot of communication with your party. Blizzard continued with hardcore attunement requirements for later raids in the expansion, but eventually the Blizzard developers lowered the requirements, and eventually they got rid of the attunements altogether. Number 1. I'm sure a lot of you have guessed it by now. Leroy Jenkins. one of the most popular WoW memes to date. Alright, so Leroy is probably the most famous World of Warcraft character in the history of the game. He was in a viral video released by the guild Pals for Life in 2005. Leroy and the other guildmates were about to pull the Whelplings in Upper Blackrock Spire, and the group starts to calculate their odds of survival in the battle. While they were calculating their survival rate, Leroy just screams his name and runs in, pulling all of them.
Oh, it's a lot better than we usually do.
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in. Save him!
Oh geez, stick to the plane!
Oh Jesus, let's go.
So I hope it became a huge meme, and people still quote the video today. And Blizzard has referenced this video multiple times by making an achievement out of it and earning the title Jenkins along with the achievement, as well as making Leroy a playable card in the game Hearthstone. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making it and remembering some of the fun times I had growing up playing this game. If you like this list, please feel free to like the video or subscribe to my channel for more like it. Or if you have something else to add, please let me know in the comments. See you next time.